Hi, I'm Lou Lugston and welcome to the EAP Counsellor podcast. This is a podcast for business owners, leaders and employers that want to create an environment and culture that is not only positive, fun, engaging and productive, but it's also a place where employees want to be and of course don't want to leave. Let's face it, we all know how much it costs to replace an employee. You know that mental health and wellbeing is important. You know that employees want to be in a mentally healthy workplace. But where do you start? What do you do? Leading and managing people is a whole different ballgame, right? Well, let me help you design and create a mentally healthy workplace. Together, we will build a strong and vibrant culture and team of people who you get to work alongside and achieve amazing results. Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode number 35 of the EAP Counsellor podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about a theme in wellbeing, which is called Go Slow to Go Fast. I'm going to be talking about prioritising our wellbeing, making time for wellbeing in our quest to be compassionate leaders, and the importance of slowing down the pace, which means slowing down our pace. And I'm here to let you know that we can slow down the pace, we can breathe, we can just tone it down, and we can still get results. So today it's all about the critical topic of prioritising mental health and wellbeing in leadership, because, it's pretty important that leaders demonstrate this. As you know, I'm your host, Lou Lugston from the Team Approach, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you all today in this 35th episode, and as I said, talking about the theme of we need to go slow to go fast. Now, that may be a foreign saying or term to a lot of you, and that's okay if it is. I'm here to let you know that the old me used to go really fast, used to have a constant long to-do list that as soon as I crossed something off, I was adding another few things on the bottom. It was never finished. I was constantly working through tasks, living the busy cycle, and it actually felt really uncomfortable if there was nothing on the to-do list. I was so good at generating even more work for myself because it actually felt uncomfortable to stop, to pause, to go slow. And I absolutely had the mindset that, I had to make things happen. I had to create things. I had to be constantly working to be succeeding. And I probably really learnt the hard way. The impact on my health and well-being was massive. It absolutely stepped me towards whether it was burnout or definite feelings of feeling burnt out. And it really had a very marked impact on my health and well-being. Over the last few years, I have been really focused on slowing the pace down for my own nervous system health, for my own health and well-being. And I won't lie, it was hard at the start. I had to change my mindset, my belief system. I had to create new habits and, really change things around. But working with great mentors, as well as educating myself and learning so much about nervous system health, about relaxation, about meditation, about calming the system down to have more capacity, I now am such an advocate for the term go slow to go fast. And I am here to say that we can slow the pace down and we can actually achieve more because we have more capacity, we have more creativity, we have more energy, we have more patience, we have more tolerance. The list goes on. If you're someone that is quite curious about what I have been saying, if you are nodding away and thinking, oh, yeah, actually, that's that busyness, that rat race feel, that, when we see, I guess the treadmill feeling it is, feeling like we're just constantly walking on a treadmill that never stops, that we never turn off. If that sounds like you, well, you're in the right place today. And today's episode is absolutely just for you. So a little bit of background. As business owners and leaders, we often find ourselves caught up in the whirlwind of tasks, deadlines, and responsibilities. I'm the same as you, and we do get caught up in that. But what happens when we're too busy to prioritise our own well-being and that of our teams? That's what we're going to unpack together in this podcast today. The first part of the podcast I'm calling the busy trap, because it is a real trap. And, I'm sure I'm probably fairly right in saying we've all been there. And if we haven't all been in the busy trap, it's probably fair to say that most of us have, the majority of us have, or I could just say lots of us have. And what does that look like, you might ask? Well, it's definitely rushing from one meeting to another, juggling emails, and genuinely feeling really overwhelmed a lot of the time, if not all of the time. Now, that busy trap comes with a cost on our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, all of our healths. It comes at a big cost. Busyness impacts our mental health, our well-being. So it's so important that leaders break free from this cycle. As you all know, we all know that we live in a fast-paced world where busy is often celebrated. In actual fact, the way that we are designed, the way that we have evolved, our bodies actually aren't built for the busy, fast-paced world that we actually live in. Our bodies were built for slow, like, the rest and digest. Our bodies were built for slow, and yet here we are living this rat race, moving, thinking, doing, feeling really big all of the time. And our bodies aren't able to cope with that on a consistent, every day, all the time, every minute of the day basis. So what happens when busyness becomes a barrier to our mental and emotional wellness? Well, let's have a chat about that. The busy paradox. We've been conditioned to believe that busyness equals productivity and success. However, research shows that perpetual busyness can harm our mental health. When we're always busy, this affects our self-worth connection. And what that means is we can and do tie our self-worth into how busy we appear. Feeling needed and important becomes synonymous with being busy. So some people absolutely connect their self-worth to how busy they are. And in order to feel good about themselves, that means they need to feel busy because they connect the two. If we continue on that over a period of time, we're going to end up unwell in so many different ways. And also, when we're always busy, we could associate that to an avoidance mechanism as well. Some people use busyness to escape uncomfortable feelings that are lurking beneath the surface. Sorry, I should say, not surface. We all have stuff. We all have this thing called a life. We all have varying experiences in our life, and we've all experienced life events. And, we all have the same fears sitting underneath, lurking beneath the surface. So some fears might be, or an example of some fears, am I good enough? Do I belong? Am I liked? Fear of being judged, fear of failure, and so on. Now, when those fears, for example, if I just use the fears, are lurking beneath the surface, attach that to busyness, and that's associated to the avoidance mechanism. The busier I get, the less I've got to think about what might be worrying me. So I'm just going to be really, really busy, and I'm going to avoid the uncomfortable feelings that are there. I'm going to block it out by being busy. And I hear a lot from clients in my private practice and or in conversations as I'm traveling around. I hear a lot of people, probably on a weekly basis, say, oh, it was so hard, whatever that it was so hard that I just made myself really busy. I just, swamped myself with work to block it out. And that will only help for so long, and it's not going to help for very, very long at all. The toll on mental health is huge. So let's talk first about emotional consequences. Anxiety and depression come in here. Overextending ourselves leads to increased stress, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy. Guilt and loneliness can also come in here. Failing to meet obligations can trigger guilt, and busyness often isolates us. So some very big emotional consequences there that have a real impact on our health and on our well-being. I want to talk about a fellow called Mark, who is a dynamic CEO. So I just want to share a case study with you. So let's meet Mark, a dynamic CEO known for his relentless work ethic. He was always on the move, juggling meetings, emails, and strategic decisions, but something was missing. And he knew it, like he just knew that something was missing. Despite his success, Mark felt like a robot on autopilot and felt really disconnected every day. He felt disconnected from his team and from himself. The constant rush that he felt left no room for reflection or genuine connection. As I said, he felt robotic, and with that, you just have less of an opportunity to actually feel your way through things, and there is a genuine disconnect that happens then. The turning point. So one day during a leadership retreat, which was phenomenal for Mark, at this leadership retreat, which is, mind you, is not something that he would have normally done, because remember, he was in the busy or the busyness cycle. So actually leaving the office to attend a retreat was something that he'd never done before, because he was too nervous about falling behind, not getting tasks done, and he was just all about being busy. So thankfully he did leave the office and attend this retreat. Probably, if the truth be known, he probably didn't want to go, but he went, and that's all that matters. Whilst at the retreat, he stumbled upon mindfulness. It's something he had heard of, but probably just swiped to the other side. He'd heard of it, but he really didn't want to know about it, because if there's something out there that is going to try and stop him from being busy and on the treadmill of life, then he really, in theory, didn't want to know about it. But thankfully, Mark stumbled upon mindfulness, and he was in an environment where he had to listen and take it in. And what was fabulous was he came to some fantastic realizations. One being that true leadership wasn't about speed. It was about slowing down to prioritize connection, relationships, relatability, and kindness. How cool is that? Like, that's awesome. Mark decided then, in that moment, on that day, to slow down intentionally. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you how he transformed. The leadership retreat really was very eye-opening for him. Probably it felt uncomfortable at times, where he actually he had the opportunity to slow down enough learning about mindfulness and the activities that were taught there to actually start reflecting on himself, his leadership, the workplace, his team, and so on. So as confronting as that was, it also really opened his eyes, which was really amazing. And it opened his eyes so much that he thought, I really do need to make some changes, because he was all about, looking after his people. He wanted to be a really good leader, a really good CEO. He wanted to get results for the organization. And, up until this moment, in theory, he didn't really know a different way. So this retreat opened his eyes and taught him a brand new way of doing things, which I think is amazing. I love stories like this. So how did he transform, or what did he do? Well, he developed and built new habits over time, which had a remarkable impact on his own health and well-being, and also on his team. What did he do? Well, one thing he did was he created a morning ritual. So instead of diving straight into emails, with his first coffee in the morning before probably he even got to work, he began his day with mindfulness practices. So he dedicated some time to some deep breathing, some meditation, and he also knew the power of gratitude from the retreat. So he sort of wanted to combine the breathing, meditation, and gratitude, and start his day with, just not a long period of time, because it doesn't need to be, but he dedicated the first part of his day to those three things, which he built the new habit, the new empowering habit. And to be able to do it, whether he spent 5 minutes or 15 minutes, it doesn't matter, but he scheduled in his diary that at the start of every day, he was going to spend, this amount of time on breathing, on meditation, on gratitude, and really starting his day well, and starting his day in a positive, proactive, and preventative way for his health and well-being. He also decided that not all meetings needed to be in the boardroom. If there was an opportunity to, say, go for a walk with someone to have a meeting, then it was still a meeting, and it still was able to provide or obtain positive results. And how good's that? So he just got a little bit more creative in regards to meetings, and if it was a nice day and he was able to then maybe going outside, getting some fresh air, and having a conversation as a meeting to converse, with a colleague. Well, I think that that's a really great way to go, and very creative, new age, and healthy at the same time. He also decided to be more mindful in regard to decision making, and instead of making decisions really quickly, which he had done in the past, and sometimes spare of the moment, or just really not stopping, not reflecting, pausing, taking time. Instead of being responsive, he was more reactive, I guess you could say. He decided that he would pause, and he'd have a set time frame before making critical decisions. Now, this is not every decision, because during a day we have lots of decisions that we need to make often. So we're not going to set aside, half a day or 1 hour or whatever the time frame may be before making every single decision, because we wouldn't get anything done. But he decided that for critical decisions or choices, that he needed to set a time period where he considered his options before actually deciding. And he did this by, as I said, deciding on a time frame that worked for him, acknowledging that time frame, acknowledging when a critical decision or a more critical decision or choice needed to be made, and that he had to give it more time and more thought before actually deciding. That helped him to slow the pace down, to be more connected, considered, relatable, positive, proactive, all of the things, which is awesome. And again, for all of us, there's no set time period there. It's whatever works for us. It's whatever time frame we need to be able to just sit back, take a few deep breaths, consider options, and make decisions when our nervous system is calm, where we're actually better able to think clearly, rationally, logically, and so on. He also knew that he had to lead by example, because, if he didn't model it, if he didn't lead by example, well, who else was going to? So he also encouraged his team to embrace mindfulness, because his life or his leadership, the pace of his life had changed as a result. And it was a pivotal moment for him. So for him, it was all about leading by example, which is awesome, and it's what good leaders do. So as I said, he encouraged his team to embrace mindfulness. He modeled what it looked like for him. And one thing he did was he actually started providing more realistic timeframes on task completion, amongst other things, rather than, expecting everything yesterday like he did before the retreat. Everything was fast-paced. I need it now. Well, I actually needed it yesterday, but I didn't get it, so I need it now. When a leader is working at that pace, it revs everyone else in the team up, and not in a good way. So when we're revved up, everyone is then, chaotic and hectic and things like that. And it leads to a very stressful workplace, which no one likes. the really cool thing was that Mark's transformation, the impact and the benefits of that retreat actually rippled throughout the organisation, which is amazing. And it's what happens. We make one change, it creates a ripple. Each change we make, it creates a ripple. It can't not create a ripple. It's physics. The team were more connected, which is great. Employees felt seen and heard, which is brilliant. There was like a reduced feeling of burnout because the frantic pace eased. People had time to recharge, resulting in higher productivity, which is what happens. What's really, really important there is that the frantic pace eased, which meant calmer people, which means, calmer people means actually being able to do your work mindfully, creatively, calmly, which leads to results. And innovation or creativity, whichever word you want to use, flourished. Slowing down allowed space for creativity, and Mark's team were better able to create new ideas and solutions, which is amazing and, absolutely helps a business to achieve success and results, which is what everyone is interested in. Mark's journey reminds us that leadership isn't a sprint. It's a mindful marathon. I really like that. It's a mindful marathon. As you lead, consider how can you slow down to lead with empathy or to lead with more empathy? That's a big question, and I challenge you to actually, to really think about that, to maybe journal it, to brainstorm it. How can you slow down to lead with more empathy? As leaders, we set the tone, and it's really time to flip the narrative. It is time to prioritise wellbeing. We do need to encourage self-care, breaks, and mindfulness. We as the leader need to encourage that amongst our employees, amongst our teams and people. We do, as the leader, also need to model balance. We need to show our team that mental health matters. So that means we need to do something to show them that it matters. Because remember, they're looking all the time. They're watching. Leaders set the tone, the pace, the expectations. So we need to model that. And checking in with our people is so important. Regular conversations about well-being, that's a must-have. It's not a nice to have, it's a must-have. As I draw towards the end of today's podcast, I would love for you to pause after this, spend a little bit of time to pause and reflect. And pause and reflect on your own personal life, your professional life, your leadership journey. And I want you to think about how can you break free from the busy trap? Because it's so easy to get in. It's so easy for all of us. And as I said at the start, I've been there. I've absolutely been there. And I do need to watch myself. It's an old habit that, yes, I've been breaking, but, if I am not consciously watching myself, being aware and reflecting, it could be something that I could, develop again. And that's not a habit that I want to develop and bring back into my life at all. So ask yourself the question, how can you break free from the busy trap? Remember, leadership isn't about constant motion. It's about intentional impact. I like those words too. It's time to prioritise your mental health. And when you do that as the leader, you will be able to watch your team thrive. I promise you, it's amazing to watch our teams thrive. Compassionate leadership isn't just a buzzword. It really is a necessity. It's something I talk about all the time, and it is a necessity. Leaders who prioritise their own well-being can create a positive ripple effect within their organisations, which is phenomenal. And, I get really excited when I hear about it and when I see it. Remember that compassionate leadership starts with you, the leader. By making time for self-care, you empower your team to do the same. It's just so important. Please, if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's the theme or the term or the saying, we need to go slow to go fast. I want you to really think about what that means for you and how you can go slow to go fast in your work life and in your personal life as well. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the podcast. Remember, subscribe, share, and take care of yourself. Until next time, this is Lou Lugston from The Team Approach signing off. And as I sign off, remember, listeners, it is so okay to slow down, to go slow in order to go fast. Prioritise your mental health and lead with compassion. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of the day, and I will be back soon. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you would like to find out more or just get in touch, my Instagram handle is @theEAPCounsellor. Everyone deserves to be surrounded by a great team, and together we can make a difference.